Well, in ministry, we all know that money can be tight, but we also know that free doesn't always mean a good product. But today in Practical Church Planting, we're going to share with you 9 free resources that we use at New City Church and that you can use too.
Thanks for joining us again today on Practical Church Planting. Today we're going to be giving you 9 free resources that every church can use.
Free.
Free.
Before we get to the free ones, we want to tell you quickly about a paid one.
Yes.
Which is our Growing Your Launch Team course. So if you're launching this year, again, ideally it's for people that are about 12 months out or less. Mm-hmm. We give you practical tips, not just how to, like, you should raise money and meet people, but how to actually do it, how to put a plan together that you can actually work through. So you can go to practicalplanning.com/launch to get access to the Growing Your Launch Team course and all that good stuff.
That's right.
Highly would recommend. These are free ones. We've done episodes. Sometimes we talk about random stuff and then we do episodes where we put them all together.
Yeah.
So some of these we've talked about previously, and we've even done resource episodes previously, but we haven't done free.
That's right. And a few of these I know we haven't because some of them we have only just recently discovered.
Yes.
So.
And we've talked about in the past too that sometimes free actually costs you more money. Mm-hmm. Like you don't always want to go free and cheap. These ones are good though. Like none of these are like cheap knockoff free versions of something else you should actually get.
Exactly.
And so these ones are good. Do we use all of these currently?
I think we use all of them in some capacity, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So here we go. Number one.
All but one. Sorry. All but one.
All but one.
Yep.
Mystery surprise coming at you.
That's right.
So here's the first one. Todoist, which is to-do-ist. Not
Todoist.
List, but
Todoist.
Todoist. All one word. This is our favorite, what do you call it? Is it task management?
Right?
I don't know what you call it.
No, not task manager. Yeah, I guess it is.
I mean, it's like, gosh, I'm blanking on all the other ones right now.
Asana,
like
Trello.
All those type of things where you can
Monday.
Assign tasks. You can even do projects and stuff in it too. I mean, we don't really use it for that. But for personal task stuff, this is by far my favorite. I guess Brian uses it too, so it's his favorite now.
Better than the others.
It's my wife's favorite, and she's like super organized person, and so she uses it too. Here's why I like it. I like, like all of them, they have the app and they have it on their web browser. They actually, if you have an iPhone, they actually have a widget, so you can actually do like a bigger one. My favorite, here's why I like this one the most, a couple reasons. One, I really like there's different ways you can set it up. So on my, I use the web browser version. I don't really use the app on the computer, although you could. It's just easier. I have it bookmarked for a 7-day view, and so you can see the next 7 days coming up. My favorite thing about it is you can always like do repeated events. Now, maybe some of them have changed, but like when I tried this on Asana, like every Monday I have a certain task. Well, when I would finish it, I would click that it was done, but it would stay in my task list. It would just change the date beside it.
Yeah, it like changes it to a different color or something.
But I want it gone until next Monday. And so I love that you can do repeated events or repeated tasks, and for that day's task, once you finish it, it goes away. It doesn't just sit there with a different date.
Yeah.
My second favorite thing, well, I don't know which one's in order, but I love the hotkey function, which is Command-Shift-A. How I have set it up, I mean, you could do whatever, or I don't know what it would be on PC. Same thing.
Yeah.
Where like you don't have to have it open anywhere. You could be literally in the middle of something, and what I do is I just hit Command-Shift-A, and I can add something to my tasks and get it out of my head really quickly. And I love that you can also put a due date on it. So I could say, email, let's say I'm in the middle of sermon prep and I'm focused, I'm not going to stop, and I get something that pops into my mind, so I want to get rid of it quickly so I can get focused on the task without opening up my task list and getting other things. I can have like email Brian about the weather because we have another snow day coming probably this weekend. It's just the worst, right? And I can do a date on it. Like I can say email Brian about the weather today or tomorrow or next Tuesday or January 28th or whatever, and it puts it in your list and it has it due on that date, so you don't have to like manually do anything. And so I really like it. Again, I think what's really helpful is anytime you have anytime you tell someone you're going to do something, you need to do it. I love having it on my phone as well. There are times where someone asks me to do something and I'll literally say, hey, let me write that down real quick, and I'll just type it in my phone. Same thing, like do X on Monday, and it puts it on there, and it's super quick. So Todoist is my favorite. I don't know.
Yeah, we've tried I think 3 of them throughout. Well, I don't know about like personally, but those are we've tried 3 like organizationally wise. And like I know like Asana I think was the first one that we did, and I've been a part of places and other places that use Asana really well, and it was good for what they needed. And I'm sure if we I guess what I'm saying is they all have pros and cons. Like there's not necessarily this one's better than all the others. It's like figure out which one works the best and then stick with it instead of constantly bouncing from one thing to another. But this is what we found that works the best. It seems to be this. And what I like about it is it's the simplest of all of them. It's not like it's not necessarily like the coolest looking one or like it's not necessarily like looks like the greatest thing in the world, but it's super simple. It's super easy to use and seems to have everything we need. So if you haven't tried it and you're looking for something, I would definitely say try it before you land on something else.
Yeah, or if you have one you don't like, you're trying
yes,
to switch.
exactly.
And I also like to, I don't know if they're called projects or whatever, but and there's premium version of Todoist, but all this stuff we're talking about you can do for free, and we just use the free version. But like for example, I have an elder project, and so if I have something I want to add to our next elder agenda, all I have to do is again do the command key or whatever. I just do #elder, and it puts that not in my normal task list, but in the elder one.
Yeah.
Or if there's books I hear about that I want to read, I'll just type in #book, and I don't have to like open it up and click on the thing.
Oh, that's good. I haven't tried that yet.
So you can add little projects for like simple reminders. I think the number of projects are limited in the premium version or the free version, but I only have a couple. So Todoist is our favorite. If you haven't tried it out, you could do that.
It's worth a try.
Number 2, this one a lot of people use, but I don't think a lot of people realize it's free because I see people post in Practical Church Planning Facebook group or other Facebook groups. We use Google Suite, which is, it's called, they've changed the name, Google Apps, Google whatever.
Oh,
Google
I
Suite.
don't know.
I think it's
I assumed
Suite
it was Suites. Yeah.
It might be Apps now.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. You could type either one.
Google stuff.
And they have a free for nonprofits. So this is what we use for our emails.
Yep.
And I don't know if do they give you more Google Drive storage too, or no? We have to pay for
I'm
that.
not sure. We buy more, or we bought more at one point. We don't need more, but yeah, I don't remember.
But anyway, it's
might.
free. It's free. You have to have a 501c3 if you're part of a denomination and your church doesn't individually have one, but you use like the denominations. I'm not sure if that'll work for you or not. But we use it. It's up to 10 free email accounts before you have to pay.
Yep.
And it's just simple to manage. We also have our domain bought through Google, so it's very rare. But every once in a while, when we've had problems, it's pretty easy to figure out what the problem is.
Yeah.
But Google Suite's what we use for that. I just, as a side note, I would, again, this is one of those things where, well, this is free, so you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
But like email at something at gmail.com or whatever, it's not very professional, and it's kind of weird. So it's like, Pastor Rick at gmail.com or Rick, let's say your church's New City Church, I guess.
Church name or something.
Yeah, church name. And it's not like the URL of your actual church. It just, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with it, obviously. And there's certain contexts where maybe that's fine. But as a general rule, I would recommend you and your staff, even if it's just you have an email address for your church that you use, not, a Gmail or a Yahoo or whatever. And so Google Suite is Gmail, which we like, but it's, a New City RDU is our domain. You don't have to buy your domain through Google to link it to the Google Suite. But that's what we use for emails, and it's free, and we recommend that.
I think one of the things that that helps, especially if you're a younger church planner in the very beginning, I think one of the things you're trying to overcome is people seeing you as legitimate, especially if you're younger. And so this is not by any means solve every facet of that, but it's just one little thing where it's one thing that's not a knock against you. I think if someone sees an email coming from yourorganization.com rather than Gmail, it adds a little bit of, they're starting to get things figured out. And obviously it doesn't solve every issue, but it is just a little bit. And if you have your 501c3, it's free. We do everything through Google Apps. Like you do everything, everything that's shared, we do through Google Docs. I know other churches and stuff use things like, Dropbox and Evernote and whatever, but we just found that everyone knows how to work Google Apps. So no matter who we bring on, like staff-wise in the future, they're going to know how these things function. It's just, things get confusing. And I've been a part of like other jobs where they try and do like the, who else is there? Like Outlook related things and Yahoo based things. And like everyone kind of comes back to Google a little bit, but then some places don't want to use it for everything. And so I don't know. We've just succumbed. We use it for everything, and it works really well.
Yeah, Google Drive, which of course is free regardless too. The nice thing about that is even people outside your church know how to use it. So if you use Evernote or Dropbox or whatever, which is fine, it's not like a universally accepted thing. So if you're sharing documents or sheets or whatever with people who are also not part of your church, they can navigate that pretty easy. So Google Suite is what we recommend.
Good and free.
Good and free.
Yep.
Number 3, OBS.
OBS.
Brian,
what do you got to say? This is
what does it stand for?
This is open broadcast software or software. I think this is only applicable if you're live streaming, and if you're live streaming, you may have already come across this because this is kind of like one of the rare times where almost industry standard, it seems, is the free version. But it's completely free, and if you're trying to live stream without it, then you are running around in circles and wasting your time, essentially. If you're trying to stream to more than one place. I can go into all the facets of what you can do, but really just like if you're trying to live stream and don't know anything about this, just Google it and watch a bunch of videos and it will solve all of your problems.
This won't answer all the questions, and I don't know what it is, but we have an episode last year where we talked about our live stream setup, which I think is still pretty similar. I mean, we might have adjusted a few things, but it's still pretty similar. I don't know how much we talk about OBS, but if you're curious about live streaming on a budget and it actually being decent, go back and find that episode.
And there's so many, if you're trying to like dip your toes into live stream, there's so many YouTube tutorials. I remember when we first tried to live stream like 2018, maybe 2017. Like we tried to live stream pretty early on, and then we kind of stopped because it wasn't very good. But when we started doing it, we had another guy who was on staff at the time who was running it. And I remember him kind of just like showing me this OBS thing. And I was like, this makes no sense. It was so confusing. But if you watch like 2 videos on it, it's the simplest, easiest to operate thing in the world. Like it's so basic. And so if you're trying to live stream, like download that, figure out how that works. Like it's at the same time as you're figuring out what camera to buy. It's that kind of pivotal to what you're doing.
What does OBS do?
So it's good question. So basically what it is you take your camera feed from whatever camera and you kind of send it in there, and then in OBS is where you can kind of manage it. So you can, whether you want to add videos to your feed or add other things, but you can also from there stream it to places. So instead of just logging into Facebook from your phone, if you're streaming from your phone and saying go live, now you can actually use a camera, like a camcorder, digital whatever, an actual camera, and stream it to Facebook or stream it to multiple places, and it kind of all starts there. So you send your feed there, and then from there you can send it to other software if you want to go to like a bunch of different places, or just straight to Facebook or something like that.
So we stream to Facebook and YouTube.
Yep.
And I guess OBS somehow makes that happen.
It sure does.
So that one's a little more complicated to figure it out, but there's lots of YouTube videos. Again, I would go back and find we try to make our episodes like super practical and easy. That one's one that not everyone can do, our live stream, but because we would recommend if you can't do live stream, at least somewhat decent. It does not have to be amazing, but decent not to do it, because I think it's a detriment. And so OBS is that first step.
It'll get you started.
All right. Number 4, Logos, which you might be like, that's expensive. Yeah. But they have a free version.
Which it is. Yeah. Yes.
I bought Logos a long time ago, and so I have the not free version, and I'll explain what I do in a second, but Brian has the free version, so talk about the free version.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can get anyone can go out and download the free version, and my understanding as someone who's not a big expert, maybe you can correct me if you know, but the different tiers are essentially how many commentaries, resources, etc.
Language, history, just more stuff.
It's things that come with it. But the software itself, my understanding is it's the same across all of their different like tiers. Yeah. And so the free one it comes with a couple commentaries it comes with like Matthew Henry and like a Bible. I don't remember. Yeah. It comes with a few things that you're probably not going to use, and it may come with even more that I'm not remembering. But it's just you can still use the real basic functions like looking up Greek and Hebrew words and things like that. It still has a lot of those functions that is helpful, and then from there you can just buy individual commentaries. So it doesn't come with the free version. Doesn't come with a ton of necessarily resources, but it does come with some. But then you can build on it from there.
Now you might be wondering, well, why get the free version if it doesn't come with anything?
Sure.
Well, let me explain it to you. So again, I don't know the number. Somewhere within the last, I think 30 or 40, probably maybe less than that, I share my sermon prep and how I do it. And I think I talk about Logos in there a little bit. So I have the paid version, which I still don't really understand how it all works or all the stuff I do. I have now, well, let me explain it this way. So here's how I use Logos for sermon prep, and you can do this with the free version. So I have a certain setup, and you can Google how to do these. It's not really difficult, where I'll try to explain it briefly. I use 2 monitors for sermon prep, which if you don't, I highly recommend you do that.
Yeah.
So on one monitor is my Google Doc with, if I need to Google things over there. My other monitor is Logos. And so I have it split it up. It's not necessarily in half. It's like 1/3 and 2/3. So on the bigger side, I have my commentaries that are for that book of the Bible. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, the 1/3 side, on the top half, I have Bible. I have my Bible with all the different translations, and it's linked to my commentary. So as I scroll through my Bible, the commentaries like scroll down with it.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. So you don't have to like flip and find, or if I need to go back to a verse, all I have to do is like scroll up on the Bible part, because you can lock them together. And then on the bottom of my other 1/3, I also have the Bible as well, but I have it not locked to my commentary, so I can scroll through. I mean, I also could have a physical Bible too, but like it's just easier. I can scroll through the passage without changing my my commentary.
Yeah.
So what I do is I haven't bought a physical commentary in a couple years. Typically now I only buy 2 commentaries. We're in the book of Mark, so I buy 2 commentaries. That's it. And I lock them to it, and then every time we do a new book, because you can save the layout, so I have like a 1 Corinthians study, Esther, Ruth, Mark, which is kind of cool because if I ever have a question about one of those books and I already have the commentary thing figured out, I don't have to like go to the shelf. I can like, it's a couple clicks. But anyway, I buy my commentaries through that. It's nice because you don't have a ton of books. Mm-hmm. You can do sermon prep anywhere, which I typically always do it at home, in my church office. But there's been like once or twice where, for whatever reason, I had to do it from home, which was nice because I had my commentaries, they're digital.
Yeah.
So like I don't have to find them. And so anyway, you can use the free version, buy digital commentaries. They're probably about the same cost. They might be a little bit cheaper.
I think they're a little cheaper.
But you don't have to search through them. Now, I typically am a physical person book, but I've been doing this for a couple of years, and it's way better than trying to get multiple commentaries, put them on your desk, flip through it. Now, we use the CSB at New City, and so for a long time, you can buy Bibles if you want multiple translations. I got the CSB, but then I didn't use the extra stuff because for whatever reason, it wasn't like the word studies and the Greek and all that stuff wasn't linked. It was linked to some of the other ones, but like we didn't use that translation. And so I noticed a couple months ago, maybe it was before this, where the stuff is actually linked now, which is actually really nice. So like you can write this again. This is one of the paid versions, so they're probably one of the cheap ones. Like I can right click on an English word or a phrase, and it will tell me, the Greek word for it. Or if a commentary says this is this is translated from this Greek word, and I want to learn like more about what those Greek words are, I can click on it. Anyway, so there's paid stuff that's helpful that I am now slowly using, but you can do all that if you're able to track with what I just said for free. You can get the free version. You don't have to get all the extra stuff. Just put your commentaries on there, put the Bibles on there, and it's just, I don't know, easier than a bunch of books.
And I'll also say, like, if you're not sold on having everything digital yet, it's still worth getting. So like for myself, I don't preach every week. If I did, I would be a lot more sold on it, but I'm not to the point where I like reading on a book because I just don't like reading on a screen. I have a hard time focusing. And so whenever I need a commentary, I do get a book one or like a physical one, but having it is still really helpful because you can still really easily, I don't know if that's just I think that's like looking up Greek and Hebrew words and stuff and doing little word studies. I think it's just a feature on all of it because I can do it too.
Yeah.
But it still has a lot of features that there are still a lot of things that are helpful, even if every commentary you have isn't on there. So if I was preaching every week, it's definitely a lot quicker and a lot more efficient to have it on there. If I was, then I would bite the bullet and do it, even though I don't want to. But like a handful of times a year, it isn't as big a deal.
Yeah, I would
me.
say if you're preaching every week and you're using this stuff every week.
Yeah.
If you're not, it's probably not worth. And you're probably not buying as many commentaries and all that stuff. So yeah. But if you're regularly preaching, again, I personally really like it. And you always have your commentaries with you. I've got the app on my iPad. So if I was traveling somewhere, I need to look at it, I could find it there. And so anyway.
And a little extra free thing that you can do is they have a free book of the month. Do you get the free book of the month?
I don't use logos. So you can do lots of books on there, but I don't use logos for anything but sermon studies. So.
Yeah, me too. But occasionally they'll have like a commentary for free. Like every month it changes. So sometime in the month I'll just remember and Google logos free book of the month. And if it's something that I have any interest in, I'll get it. Like one month they had I don't remember, Hebrews or Revelation or something like that. I was like, it's free. So I'll get it. Maybe one day we'll be going through it. But they have that on there. And then there's other ones each month they have discounted. So occasionally, very rarely, but occasionally I've seen ones that I was like, oh, if we were actually going through this book, this is something I would actually get, not just like something from hundreds of years ago that's just going to sit there. Like something that I'd actually use. And so they do have discounted things as well. And if you can get it for free, which you can, it's a good thing just to get and start learning. And you may find you want to get a lot of stuff on there. Or you may find it's just kind of an extra resources to have.
So just a tip too, when you're buying, like we predominantly preach through books of the Bible, so I'll buy commentaries. When we start on those books, you can buy like complete commentary sets. I wouldn't do that. I mean, technically it's cheaper per commentary, but you don't need all those. Yeah. So I wait till we're preaching on that book of the Bible and buy 2. And what I also do is I'm forgetting the URL off the top of my head, but it's like I think it's bestcommentaries.com
or
whatever.
Too, yeah.
And it actually rates them. Now because I've done this enough, like I have a few commentary series that I just kind of like know and maybe trust a little bit more. So I typically do one of those, but it gives them ratings based off a bunch of scholarly feedback. So if you don't know what to buy, like it says like this was a 97, this was a 93, this is an 85 for various reasons. And so that's what I use if I'm not sure, to buy commentaries on logos.
Yeah, that's our 9.5. That is a really helpful site, especially if you're not someone who is like diehard dedicated to one series and you want to like explore other scholars and things. It's
Because
really
you learn
helpful.
too, because different series, some of them are like literally every verse they give you, here's what's happening. Some of them are more like overviews and stuff like that. So anyway, that's a lot on logos. If you're still following, that's how we use it.
Yep.
Number 5, practical church planting.
I heard of them.
Now we've got a lot of free stuff. And particularly, well, we'll mention all of them. This one, the particular point is our sermon series resources. So you can go to practicalplanting.com and we have resources that we recommend. And then, but we also upload all of our sermon series graphics and bumper videos that we, and by me, I mean Brian, makes that are free to use. And so I remember for us now, we kind of do what we want, but like the first year or two, I mean, maybe this is unspiritual, but whatever, we would like somewhat pick our sermon series like if we could find graphics for it, because we couldn't make them. And so all the ones that we have created are up there and they are 100% free to use.
Yep. So it's one thing we found, or I found has been really difficult, is we're now vast majority we just preach through books, and we have kind of even steered away from giving our series like little taglines. Like Mark, we're in Mark right now. Mark is Mark, the Gospel of Mark. And so I found that it's actually pretty difficult to find these like graphics and bumper videos that are free to use without like stealing somebody's.
Or
but
they're free and they're not, and they're just cheesy
or they're any
and
good.
old.
That aren't like trying to steer it a specific way, like saying this book talking about this specific topic or like a topical series. And so most of them we have out there are just books, and like this is. And so if you're interested in like preaching through Exodus, we have an Exodus one up there, and it's just like Exodus. Like it's not Exodus : actually, that one does have a tagline, but it's just basically the book of Exodus. And
I guess you could add or edit if you know what you're doing.
Yeah,
some of those.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's a bunch of websites that have them. And this is if you don't have like a dedicated creative person, add this to the list of sites to check when you want to do a series. And it's just kind of one of a few. So
practicalplanting.com. You can go to our resources tab. Again, you don't even have to email us. Just use them. But we also have a few other free ones we want to mention. We have our newsletter that we send out every Thursday, which is, you can read it 30 seconds. Just a couple of things, a couple of quotes from ministry leaders, some things from tips from us. And then a link to our current yesterday's, which because these come out on Wednesday podcast or Practical Church on a YouTube video. So that's free, and a lot of people are subscribed to that. And then we also have on our YouTube channel, we have a practical preaching course, which is free. It's a couple years old. So maybe the video quality is not like the best thing ever, but the content's still good. I mean, we talk through how to preach without notes. I mean, I don't use the outline anymore that I talk about in that video. Because I think preaching without notes is probably like the most watched one.
I think so.
But regardless, I honestly, if I were starting over, I would use the outline in that. It's like 6 or 7 videos. It's not there's various ones. But I would still use that outline to get, because I know the hard thing is like you're staring at a blank page, you don't know what to do. If you use an outline, it can like, you have some direction. And then once you get used to it, you don't need it anymore. I don't use it, but like it really helped me. And so we have a playlist on our YouTube channel, just Practical Church Planting or Practical Preaching course. It's free. I think a lot of our subscribers probably on our YouTube channel come from that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yes, that's true. It's helpful. Like especially, it's helpful if you're new to preaching, new pastor, or if you're a staff person. If you have like a staff person who wants to start preaching, to let them look at it. It's not by any means like watch these videos and then you're going to just be like the greatest preacher in the world. But it's especially since it's free, it's a good thing to go through and just to get some thoughts on how to reduce your notes. Like you said, like especially for me when the option was opened up for me to start preaching a handful of years ago, and writing. I remember like writing my first couple of messages is like,
what do you do?
What do you? Yeah, it's like I have the Bible like printed out, but like I just explain it. Like I don't know, it's difficult, especially in the beginning, and so it just gives you a framework. And like you said, we don't use this outline anymore now that we've gotten more comfortable with it. But if I was talking to someone who's brand new, I would tell them to do the same thing, just as kind of like a starting point to start getting comfortable. So it's a good thing to check out, especially if you're new to this whole preaching thing.
And again, we are very practical here, so it's not philosophical, theoretical. It's like literally, here are things that you can do. So practicalplanting.com, we've got sermon series resources. Again, our newsletter, you can also get on our website at practicalplanting.com if you want to get that, and then also on our YouTube channel.
That's right.
Preaching. Number 6, Anchor.fm. This is a podcast host. when it first came out, it was like, I don't know, I saw a bunch of stuff that was like weird about it. So I was like, meh. And then we were hosting our podcast through our website, but the problem was we couldn't see how many downloads we were getting. And then, we were having a problem. There was like, I guess it was like 6 months or so ago where like it wasn't uploading to like a podcast.
Yeah.
So I was like, we need to just move it off. And so we don't have this problem. And so we were going to use Libsyn, which is what we use for the practical church planning, which you have to pay for. But the Brian was like, why don't we try this free one? And so our church sermons are on Anchor.
Yep.
And they're free. And now we have podcast stats, which is nice. But
yeah, I was very hesitant to try it. We've used Libsyn for a long time before we started using it. When I had heard other like podcasts kind of describing how to start one, and that was by far the one I heard recommended the most. So I'd never even like thought of looking at anything else. And then Anchor came out, and everyone was saying it's free and it's great, and I was like, well, free never means great. So I never even like tried it. But I think we first tried it because we did these or we do still currently these Bible study
online
video
Bible
series,
studies,
online Bible studies, and we do it through a podcast too, where it's kind of like its own thing, but it's under our like channel. I don't know if that's what's called. They're like channel, something like that. And they're kind of like we're just kind of doing it because we want to, basically, and hopefully it helps somebody out. But it's not like this big major thing.
Yep.
It's like, well, let's just try it under Anchor, and if it doesn't work, then we get rid of it. And it's super simple to use. I didn't set anything up on Libsyn, so I don't have like a frame of reference like you would. But it's really easy to use. It's real easy to see your metrics and downloads and listens and all this stuff, and it's really easy to start uploading things in the future. So, if I was starting anything from scratch, it'd definitely be where I go. And it's like free. Like there's no like do this or a subscription. I don't even think you can pay them if you wanted to. Like it is free.
Yep. So, and the nice thing is you can get it to all platforms. I see some churches do this where they'll put their podcast on Spotify only or whatever. Like you need to put them on all of them.
Be as many places as you can.
Spotify, you need to be on Apple. I mean, Google Play, Amazon Music. I know like Apple's like the biggest one, but people do listen to other ones.
Yeah.
And so personally, granted, we just kind of upload the sermon and I kind of click through the stats a little bit. I personally like Libsyn more, but I have a lot more experience with it. I like their stats breakdown a lot more. I mean, it's the reason why we didn't move our practical church planting host from Libsyn to Anchor is because we lose all the stats. And also you pay for it, so it's more detailed. So I like Libsyn more than Anchor, but there's no problem at all with Anchor. And so if you're looking for free, Anchor.fm.
And I think it's good, especially like, I mean, I assume if you're watching this, we're talking about for uploading like church sermons, where you're probably not doing a ton of stuff to, I don't know if this sounds like, you're probably not doing a ton of stuff to increase your listenership for your sermons. Like the hope is that your people in your church are listening to it. You're going to tell them about it. But if you're trying to like do something that's like a business related thing or something like that, then maybe it's not the best one. But for something for a church, I definitely think it's a good way to go.
And it's a side note, as we said before, you should record the audio and the video if you have a camera, but definitely the audio, you should absolutely do that. Upload the sermon podcast on Sunday, afternoon or evening, because people are most likely going to listen to it on Monday or maybe Tuesday. But if you wait till like Tuesday afternoon, just people listening to it is a lot less because they're not thinking about it as much. So I'd also always upload your podcast. It's okay. Like we do the video on Monday normally, but the podcast gets uploaded on Sunday, so it's available Monday morning when people might be checking.
And a little side tip, make sure you listen to it sometimes to make sure it sounds okay. I have a good buddy who listens to this podcast, and he'll know exactly what I'm talking about. His podcast is always so much quieter than every other one, so I got to crank it up. And then when my next podcast comes up, it blows my eardrums out. So
you have a buddy that makes a podcast that's too quiet? Is that what you're saying?
No, a buddy who's a pastor who puts their podcast. Yeah, who's is much quieter than us. Their church's is very quiet.
Yes.
And he knows. I tell him often, but make sure to check it out too. Just don't assume it's always fine. Make sure to just click through every once in a while. You don't gotta listen to yourself every week, obviously, but make sure give yourself a little bit of quality control.
So that was number 6. Number 7 is Audacity. Also, Brian.
Audacity is a free video editing. Audio editing software. So obviously, if you have Mac, you have GarageBand, which if you're just trying to upload your sermon and you just want to clip off the worship portion and just do beginning to end sermon, don't really do any editing, it works perfectly fine. Audacity is like if you have things you need to take audio editing up to have a lot more options, but also it's not something that you feel like you need to start paying for, then Audacity is the way to go. So like if you're getting to the point where maybe you want to start doing another podcast or something like that, or if you are having audio issues that you have someone who actually knows a little bit about audio tech and they want to start editing some of your stuff, it'd be a place to start without having to get into paid versions. So it's good. It's really helpful. It does take some learning. As with most free things, the free versions aren't always the most user-friendly. So it takes a little bit of learning. But for me, this was something I started using before we got into like paying for Adobe products, and it was definitely helpful as a place to start with. So if you want to start audio editing, Audacity is a place to start.
Audacity.
That's about it. Like if you have no need for it, if you're using GarageBand and everything's ringing fine, there's no need to just get something that's more complicated just for the sense of getting it. But if you feel like there's more you want to do or more you need to do, then it's a place I would start before paying for things when you're unsure about it.
All right. Number 8 is Calendly.
Calendly.
So like Calend, L-Y.
Replace the AR with an LY.
Yes, right.
Of calendar. Yeah.
I use this. I've mentioned before. I started even maybe using this almost about a year ago now, and I was like, "Why don't I do this beforehand?" There's paid versions which are a little nicer. You get more options, but for now I just use the free one, which is fine, and it is a massive time saver when you're trying to meet with people. So instead of giving them a couple options, them giving you a couple options, it goes back and forth a million times. Again, you can sync it to your Google Calendar. And so if you put something in a time slot that you're normally available on Calendly, it automatically takes it away. I have mine set up for 15 minutes before and after meeting. So if I have something from 2 to 3, you couldn't schedule something at like 2:40. If that makes sense. There's automatic buffers. I don't know how I'm trying to explain it. So if I have something from 2 to 3, you could not schedule a meeting at 3. The earliest you could do would be 3:15 or 3:30. I think 3:30. I think I have them set up at 30-minute increments. But if I did 15-minute increments, you couldn't do right away. Super nice. So when someone wants to meet with you or you want to meet with somebody, you just say, "Hey, love to meet. Here's my calendar. Pick a time that works good for you." And then on my little Calendly thing, there's like a little reminder that I'll follow up with a place. So don't worry about where you're meeting. Get the time first. And it's just because I used to always email people 3 times that I was available, which there are more times, too, but just give people options, because if you don't like give them an option, it'll never work. Yeah. Oftentimes one of those 3 typically worked. And I felt weird. I've said this before when I started doing this, because we're not a big church, that I don't want people to think that I'm like, look how busy I am or how important I am. But that's never happened at all. And it's actually saved me a ton of time. So Calendly is free. Again, the free version is there's limited types you can do, but just meeting people is fine. And like for me, it just says, if you pick a 12 or 12:30, we'll meet for lunch. Any other times we meet for coffee. So like I don't even have to, they know that it's going to happen. And then it says, and I'll follow up with a place. And so it just saves me a lot of time, and I would recommend it for you. Yeah. Especially in the beginning, you're going to be meeting with a lot of people. I mean, really any time, but especially in the beginning. And I don't know how much to add. It's helpful. And so this also it's helpful too. Cal Newport's book, A World Without Email, which is one of my favorite reads of last year, 2021. He mentions that if you meet with 2 or more people a week, you should use something like this. And so there's a lot of free paid versions. Calendly also has a paid version, but it's a really free version to start. This is also why it's helpful to have like blocks. I would also recommend this, which we talk about this a lot in terms of like productivity and focus, that you need to have pre-scheduled blocks and don't just leave your calendar open. So like I don't meet with anybody until 12 or later. My availability is I don't have availability in the morning because I do stuff that's good for me. And so your sermon prep, if you preach regularly, the regular stuff you have to do, put that in your calendar and then just add stuff, after the fact. But don't just give a completely wide open calendar and just kind of be flexible around everyone else. You got to make sure you have the stuff that you need to do is on your calendar, and then that. So like for me, my afternoons every week, there's a lot of availability if you're like at least 1 week out. And then what I do, at the end of the workday, I'll kind of fill in the rest of my next day, whatever those gaps are. So, but most people aren't going to want to meet within 24 hours, like they understand. Yeah, sure. So Calendly will save you a ton of time scheduling your meetings, and it's free. That's right. The last but not least is Mailchimp. Of course, Mailchimp also has paid versions, but if you're doing like a weekly church newsletter or whatever you want to call it, which we highly recommend doing one every single week, and just one. I mean, obviously, if there's unique things that come up, but people won't read it, they'll unsubscribe. No matter how big or small you are, you should do it. Mailchimp is free. You can get everyone's email. You're not saving a list on your email account client or whatever. And that you just click the list, write the email every week. It's nice, too, because you can use your same template you used the week before, which we don't recommend images and all that crazy stuff. We just do a regular email template is what it's called, which is just plain text. But anyway, so there's repeated stuff from the week before. I don't have to retype it out. Like if an upcoming event, we'll typically put it on there 2 to 3 weeks at a time. Like I don't have to edit anything. It just stays there, and I'll erase it, that week. But Mailchimp is what we use for our newsletter. It's also what we use for our Practical Church Planning newsletter. That's right. It's what I use for my personal Dylan Dotson newsletter. Now for that stuff, for Practical Church Planning or my personal stuff, we have a paid one because there's like automated follow-ups and all that sort of thing. But you don't need to do that really with a church newsletter. You just put people on it every week. So Mailchimp is what we use for our email mass communication.
And it's like what everybody uses. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but it's definitely the big industry one. So the fact that you can get it for free, and I don't know, I don't think anyone would disagree. I don't think anyone would disagree that you need to do a weekly newsletter, but a lot don't anyways.
Yep.
And so it's definitely something you should be doing from day one, like day one pre-launch, is start getting in front of people. Do it once a week. Don't be annoying, but it should be something you should start as soon as possible.
Yeah, and what we do is, our Connect cards that people fill out. Obviously, we have a follow-up process an automated follow-up process through Text and Church, but we also add them. Every email we get, we add it to our newsletter. If people give it to you, they expect that you're going to do something with it. So, I mean, not necessarily like if we do an event like Trunk or Treat and we get people's emails, or we're not going to put those on the because
we want them to know what they're signing up for.
That's kind of spammy, you know. We just do that for like the follow-up prize reward and giving them an email about New City Church and stuff. But every time you get an email, you need to put it on there and send something out once a week. People do different days or maybe recommend different times. I would just say do the same day every week. We do Thursday because it's somewhat close to Sunday, so it like reminds them, hey, church stuff. Now the newsletter is not nearly about Sunday morning. It's just a reminder that we're doing stuff and you should come.
Yep. It's a good thing to keep in front of people.
So those are 9 free resources every church can use. I hope you find that helpful. Again, if you ever miss something on the podcast, the show notes, we mention we list out all the stuff we talk about, so you can look at some of that stuff. And again, if you want premium church planting, you want to grow your launch team, practicalplanting.com/launch.
Yep.
We have had 100% money back guarantee within 30 days, which is like the standard thing. We finally, guys, got our first request.
We did.
For a refund.
It was a very kind request too.
Although he said this stuff, he actually, I don't know word for word, essentially said this stuff is actually really, really good. And if I had bought it 6 months ago, this would have been awesome. But his church planting coach network that he's been working with have talked a lot about the same stuff. And so happy to give a refund. But I was like, great job for you, whoever's mentoring you, that they're actually giving you practical stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it wasn't like this is bad. This was like, we're actually working through this stuff right now. Yeah. So that's where you can get it. And again, thanks for listening. You can subscribe, leave a rating and review if you find this helpful.
Please do.
And again, also, if you want some more free stuff on Facebook, our Practical Church Planting group, you can join, ask questions, interact with other people as well. And we'll be with you next week on Practical Church Planting.